Hi everyone, it's William with the 1921 video series, and I've got some good news for those of you who are looking forward to the cocoa material. We're going to reach that sooner than I thought because, let's see, we're going to go to the 15th of January. So Dmitri, he wrote the long diary entry of the 15th January first, and then went back and did those 15 days. And so we're up to the 13th of January. We have the 14th and the short entry for the 15th yet to do. And then we'll be going into another one of the 20 plus page long entries. And the date of that will be 31st of January, and in that he'll be talking about the 15 days from the 16th of January to the 31st of January, including so that period of time includes the beginning of his year-long affair with Coco Chanel. So we have, after today, we have two more short diary entries, and then we'll be diving into that. So today we are up to the 13th of January on the old style Russian calendar. And so that day in Paris was the 31st of January for, ordinary Parisians. But for the Russian emigre community, it was somehow or other Russian New Year. I'm not sure about that, but yeah, that's where we're at. And so, just in case you're curious, at the beginning of each diary entry, Dmitri writes both the Julian and the Gregorian dates. So he writes 13/31 January 1921, Thursday, Paris, and of course his address 76 Rue Miromesnil, which, as I remarked yesterday, is already seared into my brain. Okay, so we have a mysterious Duchess popping up today, but we don't have Germaine or Mr. Oddby or the other sort of people from the seedy side of life whom he's been seeing. And I, out of curiosity, had a look at material online about the famous French brothels, of which there were several very famous ones with very glittering clientele, including kings. I think one of the British monarchs, probably Edward the Seventh, but I don't get the impression that those are the places that Dmitri is going to necessarily. Maybe it all made me think about Proust, In Search of Lost Time, his novels. I think there are 7 of those, and one, I can't remember which volume, but when I was reading those, it seemed like there was a lot, at least one of the volumes, about the main character going to and spending a lot of time in these upmarket brothels, and also apparently he supported or provided some or rented a permanent space at one of them. Proust, of course, was gay, although the character in his novels is not gay and goes to these brothels to spend time with women. But in real life, there were also a lot of gay brothels or brothels that offered both men and women in Paris. And so maybe this Mr. Oddby, I couldn't find anything by Googling Mr. Oddby Paris brothel, but apparently this Mr. Oddby was some kind of procurer or had his own establishment, and there were what Dmitri assumed to be a lot of gay men there, and only 3 girls, and for the women he uses the word dievica, which means maiden or virgin, but it's ironic, obviously. When I looked it up, I couldn't find. I have this very useful book that was published, I think, in the 80s by the Berkeley, the University of California, Berkeley, and it's called the Dictionary of Russian Obscenities. And I wanted to look that word up in there, but I couldn't find my copy yesterday. I hope I didn't give it away or something, because it's been very useful over the years, to be honest. But that word, I was able to confirm, is also used conversely to mean a loose woman, as they would have put it back then. So anyway, maybe these men were actually sex workers as well as the 3 women. But yeah, unless I can find out more about Germaine and Mr. Oddby, we will not be able to figure that out. All right, it's kind of an interesting little sideline, and I think they actually have walking tours of the old Paris brothels, the most famous ones in Paris. So maybe when I'm there next spring, I'll look into that. I'm sure you would learn a lot of interesting history doing that. Okay, here we go with the diary entry. All I did in the morning was write. I had lunch at Linda and Cole Porter's, and around 2:30, Mimi and Pete came there to pick me up, and we went shopping. I bought gifts, a white fan from blank for Maria, 2 flakons, I have no idea, I'm just embarrassing myself with that word, so I'll just say 2 bottles in a decorative case for Gulia, and the same for Pete Polovtsov. For Sasha Polovtsov, a watch in a leather blank, and for Mimi, a blank. That took a long time, and I had to race to Charlie Brighton's, where I had promised to have tea. I dined at Maria's, then went down to the Polovtsov's apartment, and we exchanged gifts. Maria gave me, of course, a blank. But also, this is me interjecting, so Maria gave me a blank, this is Dimitri, and a blank table, and a box of chips, and a stone ashtray. Around midnight, Sasha Polovtsov arrived with his wife, as did Golievsky and Duchess Blank. We went out for supper. We saw in our Russian New Year and parted around 2 o'clock, so I should have warned you in advance about all the illegible words in this one. A bit embarrassing. Interesting gifts. So the white fan is for Maria, and then he has from, and he's squeezed this word into the margin, so I can't make out where the white fan is from, if he's talking about the shop, or if he's talking about it was, Japanese or something like that. But it must have been quite a fan, because that was the only gift he got her. Hopefully she liked it. Then 2 decorative bottles in a decorative case for Gulia. If I understand it correctly, these bottles, with a word that I can't pronounce, have stoppers. They're little stoppered bottles, and they can be quite pretty. I've seen some made by Lalique. And yeah, and they're in some kind of decorative case. I don't know what one did with such things, but that's the gift both for Gulia and the same thing for Pete Polovtsov. And this is interesting, because Sasha Polovtsov is the one that didn't get along so well with Dmitri. He was a very no-nonsense guy, an intellectual, I would say, on the board of directors of some Russian banks. And anyway, Dmitri gets him, it sounds like a nice gift. It could be a clock. It's the same word for a clock and a watch, but it's watch or a clock in some kind of leather container, or it had a leather wristband or something. I can't make it out, but that sounds like certainly a more extravagant gift than the fan, but who knows. And then for Mimi, a blank. Well, the interesting thing here is that Dmitri is leaving out Sasha's wife. He didn't get anything for her, so that's a bit strange. He likes her. Her name is Sofia, so he calls her Sofka. And then he races off to Charlie Brighton's from the shops. He races off to Charlie Brighton's because he'd promised to have tea with her. So Charlie Brighton is the alternative to this Germaine woman. She's a little more respectable. She's definitely not a professional. She is someone, however, whom Dmitri has told us he's very sexually compatible with, but she is also apparently a little pushy because she tried to get him to forswear all other women on her behalf. Sorry, with the son there. And he said, you know, who the heck does she think she is? Kind of a response. Anyway, then after tea, he goes to Maria's for dinner. And after Maria's, they go to the Polovtsov's apartment, and that's when they have their gift exchange. And Maria gave him some kind of a table. I can't decipher the adjective. And a box of chips, not meaning, you know, Doritos or something like that, but a box of gambling chips, of poker chips, or whatever you want to call them. And I'm surprised that she wanted to encourage that interest in her brother, but I'm sure it was something Dmitri liked. And she also got him a stone ashtray, some kind of stoneware, I suppose. That sounds nice. He must have had an ashtray around every corner in his house because he was a chain smoker. All right, and then at midnight, for the big event, for the seeing in of the new year, Sasha and his wife arrive, and also some people who are not part of the usual circle, but who have been invited. So Dmitri's friend and political crony Galievsky is there, and also this Duchess. Her surname starts with a D. And so I looked through all my D's in my name index, and the only one I could find, a Duchess with a D name, was Marie, the 4th Duchess de Caz de Glucksburg. So Dmitri and Maria were Glucksburgs on their mother's side of the family. That, if I'm not mistaken, that was the surname of the Danish royal family. Of course, she would not personally have been a relative of theirs because she had this surname and this title by marriage. Yeah, and so she and her husband both appear in the diaries in 1934. So, and the name that Dmitri writes down using Latin letters fits in a general sense. It doesn't look, I can't make out the individual letters, but it doesn't look to me like it is a close enough fit for me to say, yeah, that's her. It's like the right number of letters and the D, and it ends with an S. So, yeah, maybe the way the Duchess's name is spelled is Decazes, and yeah, I don't know. She was born in 1885, so she was close to Dmitri and Maria's age. And you know why she would be invited to Russian New Year's, I have no idea. But whoever this Duchess is, and her name does look French, even if it's not the 4th Duchess de Caz de Glucksburg. Whoever she is, you know, it's a bit strange that she would be there for the Russian New Year's Eve, but why not? So they go out for supper, and saw in the new year and they were out for about 2 hours, and Dimitri doesn't mention anyone getting drunk. For God's sake, someone in the house has just turned the television on. I've asked people not to do this. So I'm going to cut it short and say goodbye now, and I'll see you next time. Bye.